ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So, Sangat ji, we've just had our session 2 of the 6-week meditation
Nothing
course.
under this. Nothing under the.
And with Guru Sahib's Kirpa, the last session, Sangat were sharing their experiences of having connected to peace or glimpses of peace in some way, shape, or form, which is amazing. Because once we start to experience those glimpses of peace, a sense arises in our mind that even more peace is possible. That initial glimpse of peace opens up the possibility for us to experience that more and more. So, Sangatji, today we were initially going to have Ramanpreet Singh join us, but unfortunately they're not able to join today. And for the next half of the session, we will have Harbir Singh joining us. So let us begin by perhaps sharing our experiences on the chat of how we have found the Simran, and please also feel free to all those who've attended to unmute themselves if they would like to ask questions or to share any discoveries they've had between the last session and now. And there were some questions that did come up that we weren't able to answer last week. Amandeep Benji, do you have a record of what those were?
No, I don't, but I can try and remember some of them.
Okay, that would be great. Because what we can do whilst the Sangat are sharing any questions, any thoughts, reflections on the chat, we can just start by addressing those questions that we didn't have time to answer in the last session. And if anybody remembers them, please do feel free to write in the chat as well. So Amandeep Benji, there was one around the Shabad, wasn't there? The Anhad Shabad, what that sounds like. How do we know that we're experiencing it? So that was one question. Perhaps start off with that.
Benji, go for it.
So as Amandeep Benji, I think she briefly explained in the last session, when we start to do the Simran and the mind starts to come to that place of single-minded attention, some of us, after doing the Simran, after chanting, or even during, may find that we start to hear a sound or sounds internally. And some people describe the sound as a kind of soundless sound, a kind of white noise, sound of space, kind of sound initially. And then in Gurbani, it says that there are so many different kinds of shabads. Sorry, I don't know why it's unmuting me. That there are so many different kinds of sounds that you might hear. And there's a Shabad in Gurbani that says, Panche Shabad Nirmail Baje Javar Sankh Tol Karngaje. That there are some examples in the Gurbani of the kinds of Shabads that we might hear. So you have the Javar, the Sankh, like the Chor side, that kind of sound, the kind of wind, air kind of sound. And you can have the tol. So these are all sounds that are given within Gurbani for examples for the sounds that we might hear. Sorry, I have a little one crying in the background. I'm trying to focus. So Yeah, Hanji. I don't know if Benji, if you want to add anything to that.
Angie. Yeah. So I think for our experience in Sangat has been, initially that sound will be very subtle. So it could be like the waves, it could be like crickets, like Benji's explaining. But then as your avastha develops, as you continue to do that Simran and kill those vichar, as you start to go into that state of sun again and again, you can start to experience those different sounds. And I think that Benji was saying there's 5 instruments, so things like drums, wind instruments, string instruments, all these different sounds might start to come. Ultimately, there's one Shabad, there's Ik Shabad. So one way that Gurmukh have explained this to us before is if you imagine Darbar Sahib is a naksha, is a map for our internal home. So if you're outside of Harmandir Sahib, outside of the Darbar Sahib, you will hear that Kirtan is happening, but it will be very fuzzy. You won't be able to hear the exact Shabad that's being sung. Um, as you walk in and you might go around the Parkarma, that sound changes. As you walk down Darshan Diori, it changes. And then ultimately, when you come into the Darbar Sahib, you'll be able to hear that, whatever that Kirtan is, you'll be able to hear it really clearly. So, in the same way, that Shabad that's coming from Vaheguru, that internal sound, is that one sound. But depending on how close we are or how far we are, it can be related to the Chakra system as well. We don't put too much emphasis on that, but we do have an understanding that depending on where you are in terms of your spiritual state, you will hear those different sounds, you will hear it differently. And when you get to that highest avastha, you will hear what that one sound. um, so that's kind of the summary. So there is a question from Sangat that when we're sitting in Antargat, is it okay if we still hear the outside noise, like a clock ticking? And also, if a pankti from Gurbani comes to mind, is that still a vichar? So do you want to address that, Benji?
Hanji. So initially, when we're doing the Simran, and you know, the dhyan is sometimes not strong enough to block out external sounds. And so sometimes, when we're doing in the Simran out loud, we might be aware of noises or sensations in the body, and then especially when we go to do Antargat Simran, because we don't have that loud sound that we're focusing on now, the Gurmantar. Sometimes the vichar can increase if the mind is not quite ready to go into Antargat Simran. So it's absolutely fine to be able to hear the outside noises, as long as you feel that you can bring yourself back to the Gurmantar easily, and then slowly those outside noises will start to disappear or get less. So if that's not happening, and we're focusing a lot on those outside sounds or on vichar or on bodily sensations, then that's a sign that we need to do the Simran out loud again, need to go to Bekri Bani again, and as loud as we need to, in order to then settle that mind, to the point again where we can only hear the sound of our voice. So the vichar are very few. And then we can slowly go quieter, which will happen naturally anyway. Then going to Antargat again and again, if there are lots of vichar, going back and repeating the process. So it's just as we do this consistently, day by day, we will start to have a sense of how to do the Simran, so that we can connect properly. We will start to know that, okay, when I do it loudly, I can connect, then I go quieter, and I have too many vichars, then I have to go loud again. So you start to develop a process. Then holly, what will happen is, as day in, day out, we're doing the Simran, and in between, we're practicing not taking on too many vichar. This is going to be the topic of the next session, which is, where are we spending our breaths during the day? Where is our attention during the day? So the thing is that if we're doing the Simran sitting down, we're clearing the mail, but then the moment we get up, we start taking vichar, and for the rest of the day, we're taking vichar, then we're going to have loads of vichar when we sit down to do Simran as well. So we're going to be talking about what are those factors that help us to increase our ability to concentrate, connect when sitting in Simran. Hanji. Regarding the Pangti coming up, I would say that sometimes the Pangti can take us back to the process of sitting in Dhyan. But you wouldn't want to be in a situation where you're sitting and trying to connect with the Antargat Simran, and but you're continually thinking about Gurbani or doing vichar of Gurbani. Then you're not we want to get beyond thought. We want to get beyond vichar. We want to go to a space of no vichar. And so ultimately, obviously, like doing vichar of Gurbani is excellent, and we should be connecting with the Shabad, Gurbani Shabad, as much as we can. But when we're doing the Simran, we have to follow Gurbani's instruction, which is to get to that point of single-minded focus, where we then listen to that internal Shabad, that Anhad Shabad, which is an instruction directly from Paramatma, just as in Guru Sahib say Turki Bani Ai, then Sagli Chint Mitai. That the Bani has come from Turo, and it comes from inside. And that Bani has then been written in Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji to teach us and our minds how we can connect to that Turki Bani. So in order to do that, we have to go beyond the thinking about Gurbani, and we have to go to that space of no thought, no vichar. Hanji.
And you, so I was just going to add, sometimes spontaneously Gurbani does come to mind while we're in that state, and that's okay. And even with the other things, it's okay to notice that's there, but it's always about bringing that attention back. So things will come up, the Gurbani will come up, you'll hear the clock ticking, a vichar might come up, but it's the power is in just bringing that mind back and being aware that those are distractions and coming back again and again. Hanji. So Hanji, whoever's on iPad 21 is asking if they can unmute and ask a question. Hanji, go for it.
Hi. Yeah, my question is, I listened to the recording that you sent in the WhatsApp. I think it was on the Telegram throughout the day, on and off, and I found it really helped when I'm going through a very low period. I've been like this for over 20 years. I keep getting cyclical periods of depression, and this one's come back within about 4 months, and I found it really good when I got louder and louder and louder, and really, really lifted me. And then I just listened to the breath. And how do I maintain that when I'm not listening to recording and doing it with you? I'm struggling on that a little bit.
Yeah. So the best way that Maharaji tells us is with Sangat. So Mela Sadha Sangat Bhaja Keval Naam. So if you have that opportunity, obviously, to go physically into Sangat, whether it's at your Gurdwara Sahib, depending on where you live. And what you'll find is even if you're having lots of thoughts, this is my experience at least, when I go into the Sangat, then I do that Simran. My mind will stabilize much more quickly. So it's definitely practice makes progress. The more we do this Simran. So the reason why we sent the recording is that it's just helpful as a starter. But what we do want to do is we want to become independent in that sense and be able to do it ourselves. We want to be able to do it for longer periods of time. And ideally, what we want to be able to do is to do it long enough so that we go into that state of sun where it feels like you're falling asleep. And that's where a lot of this transformation. So again, I'll come back to my personal experience, as in my experience and people that I've worked with in terms of the work that we both Benji and I do, is that when you start to go into that state of sun, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's physical health issues, those things start to heal. And it's that special state that when you go into that sun, you're going beyond your mind, you're going beyond your body, you will start to find that you come back as a different person. Those garam, or however you want to think about it, those vichar, they start to fade away. So one thing that I used to do a lot is I would set a timer. You can get free timers, and I would set it for, say, 20 minutes. And I would make sure that I'm fully focused for those 20 minutes. I chant, I listen to the sound of my voice. Then you start to do it intuitively, Benji. So you'll feel like, okay, I need to chant loud now. My mind is too busy, or I need to chant fast because my mind is too busy. And then you'll start to feel naturally, okay, I'm going to start to slow down. I'm going to take it to a whisper, or I'm just going to go antargat. So the more we practice it, the more we're able to tune into that. Does that answer the
yes,
question?
that's exactly what I did. What I've been doing, going louder and louder, and then slowing down. But I'm just talking in between when I'm not doing it with Sangat. Yes, I understand that. But I mean, on a day-to-day level, then I was just sort of humming it in my head, really. Is that?
Do you mean like when your eyes are open and you're doing stuff
yes,
around the house? Okay,
yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Anji, Benji, I'll let you answer that one because Benji has 4 children. So she doesn't necessarily always have that time to sit and close her eyes and do it, even though Benji, I know she does prioritize that time.
Yeah.
But, for me, I'm someone who would be like, oh, I don't have time to do it. And then I see Benji with these 4 kids and she's working and she's. So Benji, can you give us good tips on how to do it with your eyes open?
So there are actually a number of ways, and the first initial way is actually just to be chanting whilst you're doing things. So if you're washing the dishes or you're, whatever you're doing, cleaning the house or preparing food, just spending some of that time consciously, so chanting out loud, so Vai, Guru, Vai, Guru, or having a recording on the background, and just trying to be very intentional to as much dhyan as you can on that simran. Obviously, it won't be single-minded attention. It will be, your attention will be divided between the simran and your worldly work, but that still counts. That is still going to contribute to much more a state of sedge, so that when you do get time to sit down, you will be able to connect much easier.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful. I mean, I will do it every morning and evening, 20 minutes, that's not a problem. But I want to sort of, what you're saying, incorporate it in as we go. And the recording really, really helped. It's amazing. Thank you so much for sending that recording. Thank you.
Hanji, so we have plenty of spaces that we might not recognize. So things like when we're driving the car. So for me, going to work, coming back from work, sometimes I will listen to Kirtan or Gatha, but especially if my mind is really busy, I will just do that Simran really loud when I'm by myself, especially. I'll do it really loud in the car on my journeys to work and on the way back from work. While we're cooking, gunning, I'm making up a word here, gunning the atta, making the roti, preparing the vegetables, whatever it is we're doing, going for a walk. So, when you're out in nature, just keeping that mind steady with that Guru mantra. So Saas Simro Gobind. With every breath, we want to bring our mind back. At this stage, we want to bring it back to that Guru mantra. So when our mind goes off in thoughts, we bring it back with our eyes open as well. Whether you're looking after the children, our experience have been where there's very young children. If you've got it on in the background and then sometimes you're chanting and sometimes you're not, even your children will start to chant, and that's amazing. And then sometimes you might be, I've heard plenty of stories where, maybe there's a couple and they start to have a little bit of an argument or a disagreement. And the very young child, like 1, 2, 3 years old, will start doing Simran really loudly and the couple will stop. And it becomes a reminder to them. And that becomes then your Sangat. We were talking about Sangat and how important it is. The people around you become your Sangat as well. And the more you chant, the more it also vibrates into their minds as well. Even if they're not chanting, they start to change as well. So this is kind of a mind activity, but it can be helpful. So what I have done in the past is I've sat down with a piece of paper and I've thought, okay, where in my day can I fit that Simran in? So, quite a few months ago, 6 months ago, I started a new job. So I had a change in my routine and I was really missing doing that extra Simran at lunchtime, which I used to just come and do in my room. So I knew I've got half an hour lunch, 10 minutes I'm going to eat at my desk, and then 20 minutes we have a chapel where I work. I'm going to go in the chapel and I'm going to do some Simran, even if it's really quiet, even I'm just focusing on my breath, like Benji said. I'm able to do that. So we can fit it in. If we can fit it in, it's like a plate. that plate gets dirty, right? And in the same way, our mind is constantly taking on those thoughts from what we see, what we hear, the conversations. But if we keep washing that plate, it stays clean. And just like Darshan Benji was saying, then when you sit down to do that Simran, you're going to have a lot less vichar. Whereas if we only leave it to morning and evening, and we're not watching our mind the rest of the time, a lot of that mail, a lot of those thoughts are going to be stuck on that mind. So then when we do sit down, we have to then kind of work through that before we get to that state of surge. So that's a really good idea, is to kind of identify a couple of times where in your day where you can do it with your eyes open. Waheguru Ji. Hanji. So Waheguru Ji, with good Kirpa, when we try to chant in Saskara Simran, our breathe in Waheguru, breathe in Vahe, breathe out Guru, or rummy movement.
Tummy movement.
Tummy movement is our anchor. When we reach Antargat Simran stage, what kind of anchor can we latch onto? So Benji, could you please first explain what is Sasagra Simran, and then explain what we anchor to?
So Saskara Simran is the first method that we have been learning in this course. And it's the Sas is breath in, Giras is breath out. So as we've been doing, chanting Vahe Guru with our breaths, and we don't actually have to pay too much attention to the breath, whether Vahe is on in breath or out breath, because it naturally will start to take that rhythm anyway as we do the Simran, as the Bhavan starts to balance. And putting the tummy movement slightly in, the Nabbi, is also something that's encouraged at the beginning as well. And I think, Benji, correct me if I'm wrong, that also helps with the kind of the tummy flow, the breath, the flow of the Bhavan. So trying to keep that kind of, as you breathe in, tummy slightly in, you can pull that slightly in, and then as we breathe out, just releasing that tummy slightly. And that's a very powerful way of, again, trying to get to that state of sehaj quicker. And then when we go into Antargat Simran, so once those thoughts are a little bit clearer and we can start going internally, at that point, we can start to use the breath, the Bhavan. So we can, as the breath is flowing in, we can internally chant Va. And then as the breath is flowing out, Guru. And usually by that point, the breath is flowing quite slowly. The breaths are deeper and slower. So we just want to follow the rhythm of that breath already. So Va, Guru. And then at some point, what will happen is that we can stay in that state of dhyan even without chanting the mantra internally. And at that point, we can simply stay in a state of dhyan without the anchor of even the internal simran. And we can hold our attention within space, within sun. And, as we continue, we're going to learn about the 2 points that are suggested within Gurbani as to where we can keep our dhyan. And one is just in front of the face within sun, and one is at the nabbi, which Gurbani says, Nab Bhavan Karyasana Base Gurmukha Khojat Tat Lahe. So as the mind starts to get clearer, as the dhyan gets stronger, we don't even need that anchor of the Va Guru, even internal, and we will be able to sit in that place of dhyan. Hanji.
So just kind of as a summary, is when we're doing Sasagras, we're focusing on the external sound. And then as we start to slow down, we might start focusing on the breath, taking the breath in, taking the breath out, and chanting internally. So that's also an anchor when we're going Antargat. Antargat means we're not chanting out loud anymore. We're going internal, Antar, we're going inside. So then you might be focusing on the breath, but at the same time, you're chanting in your mind. So you're chanting in your mind and you're listening in your mind. And then as we advance, as Benji's saying, then at some point we even let go of the Gur Mantar and we even let go of the breath. So when we start to go into that state of sun, which is that stage we're talking about where that true transformation starts to happen, where that true bhakti starts to happen, at that point, we're even going to let go of the Vaheguru Mantra and we're going to let go of the breath as well. But for now, Maharaji's given us those techniques, those jugtiyan, to start to bring us more and more inside. So, our mind might be up here, it's in our thoughts, it's all over the place. Then we bring it to the sound of our voice, Hannah. Then we bring it even more in antargat. We go inside, we go into the mind, we're just chanting in the mind. We might be focusing on the breath. And then at some point, we will even let go of that. But the mind will be stable by that point, and it will be able to sit in us, and it will be able to just sit in that dhyan, in that state of consciousness, concentration, focus, whatever word you'd like to use. Hanji, brilliant. Hanji. So someone saying Simran and Sangat has definitely helped me with depression. Sangat is the key. Amazing. Hanji. And just again, just as a reminder, what is Sangat? The Maharaj kande Sad Sangat kaisi jani hai jithe eko naam vakhani hai. Sad Sangat is not just someone who's amritari. Sad Sangat is not just someone who's wearing their panch kakar or wearing a bana, or someone who's at the Gurdwara. Sadh Sangat is the one that's focused on Vaheguru, is meditating on Vaheguru, is praising Vaheguru, is in that state of, that journey, that Santaka Marag Taram Ki Pauri, that journey towards Vaheguru. That is the true Sangat. And the reason why I say that is, as most of us, we're all on our own individual journey into Sikhi, walking towards our Guru, and sometimes we can get distracted with that. So, if there's any, for example, gossip, ninda chugli happening, whether it's about your husband, your wife, your mother-in-law, whether it's about the Gurdwara committee, whether it's about anything, that's not Sangat at that moment. It is Sangat. Sangat just means company, but it's not Sadh Sangat in that moment. So you want to be in the Sangat where people are actually taking those steps. They're doing Khoj of Gurbani. They're talking about Guru, and they're doing the Simran. Benji, what's the Pangti about Sad Sangat Chat Sal hai?
Sat Sangat Sat Gur Chat Sal hai, Jitho Har Guna Sikha.
And just explain.
So Sat Sangat is the school of Paramatma, Hari's school, where we learn how to embody the qualities of Paramatma.
Amazing, beautiful. And thank you for that lovely comment, Benji, on the chat. Hanji. So do you remember? Sorry,
Hanji.
Go for it, Hanji.
There was another question, which I can't see just now, but it was somebody saying that that when they do the Simran and they listen to the Shabad, they have a flash of light.
Why?
A prakash for a short amount of time, but they're finding it difficult to, I think, sit longer in that or leave the body to experience that for longer. So what can be done? So Amandeep, I'm going to pass that to you.
Right. So first of all, congratulations, Maharaji Kirpa. That light, that internal light, it's not coming, as long as it's not coming from outside, that internal light, that is the prakash, that is that darshan of Paramatma, that sab mein jyot jyot hai soe, that light that's within us, mantu jyot sarup hai. So that's a really positive sign. So sorry, the question was, how do we stay in that longer? And having trouble leaving the body. So first of all, obviously, in order to have that prakash with our eyes closed, we've got to practice leaving the body so there is an avastha later on where you can start to see that light with your eyes open, but at the beginning, it is important that we leave the body. So in order to leave the body, we've just got to make sure that we're really relaxed, Hannah, that we're not focusing on any pains. So it might be that you just sit in a really comfortable chair, a really comfortable, you're lying down in bed. We're minimizing distractions. And ultimately, it is a case of the more Simran that we do, the less vichar we have. And the more practice that we do of just sitting in that dhyan, the more likely it is we'll see that prakash. One of the things that we learned in camp when we went to India this year was, having that vishwas, doing that ardas, and having that vishwas. So ardas, doing that binti, doing that request to Paramatma, to give us their darshan, to forgive us for any mistakes and give us that darshan. But then also coming from a place of knowing that Maharaji jo mange Thakur apne ke soi soi deve, whatever we ask for from Vaheguru, from Paramatma, if it's coming from that place of no thought, if it's coming from that true heart and mind, they will give it to us. So again, you know, and we've talked about it earlier in the call, is just keeping that mind fully pure as much as we can. So not getting engrossed in gossip, you know, not getting engrossed in our egos, in our homme, and just having that regular practice. Again, what I would say for me, what really helps is I have my personal practice that I do at home, but also coming into Sadh Sangat and doing that Simran. You know, I just mentioned India, but certain Gurdwara as well, where they're doing that Simran in Sangat, that can also help in terms of connecting on a much deeper level. So if you're able to do that, I would definitely focus, make time to do that as well. Do you want to add anything, Benji?
Hanji, I think, that it's Malik's marji as well.
Hanji.
That when they will reveal themselves to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so this is what we're doing all this mehnat for, is to try and win Malik's favor in a way. Not that we don't have it, but it's almost like we don't believe we have it. You know, so it's to clear that mail away so that we can see that we are favorable. We are Paramatma's child. Hanji.
Hanji. So in by Gurdas Jisvara, it says Gobind Pao Pagat Ka Pukha. You know, the only thing that Vaheguru wants from us or for us is that love, is that pyar. And for me, from my understanding, is just that the only thing that gets in the way of that is us, you know, our thoughts. For me, for a very long time, it was just that sense of unworthiness. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And I was just sharing with some of the Benjis today, you know, hearing a katha on that Vishwas, on, you know, just that trust of Paramatma, that they are our true mother, our true father. They want only what's in our pala, what's best for us. When our mind, as we do this Simran, as we start to clear all of those thoughts away, as we start to clear, you know, the Panchjod, being led by the Panchjod, what starts to happen is you will go deeper and deeper into that connection. And then it won't be a belief system that, you know, that Vaheguru is, you know, is there for me, or I can have darshan, or I can hear Shabad. You will start to have that very real experience of that. And then as the more and more we're going into that sun, the more and more we're having that deeper connection, upbe, like Benji saying, just automatically we will start to have those experience of Vaheguru. And then it's a very different world. It's no longer about just discussing the intellectual meanings of Gurbani or discussing the history. All of that is important. It has its stage. But as you go further into the Simran and you start to have those experiences where, you know, the biggest experience, actually, one of them is just your internal transformation, is where you used to get triggered, you used to get angry, you used to worry about what people think, and you're just not that person anymore. You know, you're just feeling that peace, that calmness much more. And yes, you might still get triggered a little bit, or you might get into a conflict a little bit, but you're so quick to come back because you now know that game of the Panchjod, of the thoughts, and that your true source is Paramatma, is Jyot Sarup. So, Hanji, can you share the Shabads and Ang Dayan, please? So, Hanji Benji, so feel free if you hear us say any Shabads to look them up and to share them for the Sangat and the Ang that they're on. It's very difficult, as you can tell, as we're doing it in the moment, to share the exact Ang. I think when we do the weekly kind of sessions, then it's much easier to share the Shabad on the slide and then the Ang. But if there's any Shabad that you can't find, or you're not sure which ang it's on, please just let us know. Maybe put a message up on the WhatsApp, and then we can look it up and put it on the WhatsApp group or the Telegram group. Hanji, but in the moment, it's going to be difficult to do that. Hanji, the Nabbi one. So yeah, I'll ask Darshan Benji to post that one up. So I also have a question. I have vibrations in my whole body. It starts from my back. Then I feel the same thing on the back of the head while I am chanting. Chanting is it something normal? Hanji, so we might feel those vibrations. There's two ways to think about it. So it depends on your avastha. It depends on your spiritual state. Sometimes when we're very new to it, it can be a distraction. So I would say if you're very new and you're still having a lot of thoughts and your mind is distracted, then I would not put my my focus on those particular sensations. But if you're experiencing that when you're no longer having too many thoughts, when your dhyan is set, where you're ikaman ikchit, you have that single focus, and you're starting to feel it, for example, at the top of your head and on the back of your neck, then I would just focus on it, and not focusing on it in terms of having thoughts about it or what is this. But if you can just sit with your mind still and just kind of watch it, then that can be a positive thing. So it's very difficult. It's not black and white. It's not do this always and do that always. It very much depends on where you are in your spiritual journey. So I wouldn't say it's a negative thing at all. I would say it's probably a positive thing. You know, Maharaji talks about Rom Rom Simran. Within every cell in our body, that Vaheguru is, that vibration is going. But if we're having vichar, sometimes it can be a distraction. If we're still having thoughts and we start to focus on the body, it can become a distraction, and then we're not going to be able to go beyond that. However, if you're not having thoughts, sometimes those sensations, particularly towards the back of the head, the top of the head, those can actually be helpful if we start to focus. And it's not so much focusing on the body, it's focusing on that area, that space, that sun around that part of the body. Then that can actually aid our Simran. So I hope that makes sense. Darshan Benji, I don't know if she's still there, but I was hoping she could be able to help with that. But if it doesn't make sense, please do let us know. Hanji. So there was a comment last time, which was about, we were talking about, you know, this human janam, this human lifetime is Parvan, is the highest, is the most special, because that's the only janam that we can have that milap with Vaheguruji. And somebody shared a pankti about in Japji side, Kiri Tulana Hovani, Jetis Manona Visare. So again, with Gurbani, we have to look at everything with context. So if as a human being, we're not doing that true Kamai, we're not doing that Simran, we're not connecting to Vaheguru, in that context, then yes, that ant is supreme to us. Any animal that is in that state of Simran is supreme to us. But the difference is that when we are as a human being, we then have that ability to have that milab, which those Lakh Churasi June, those 8.4 million lives will not be able to have. So I just wanted to clarify that. Hanji. So also when we are on a journey, even if we are in the same vehicle, we might see different things looking out the window, but we are still in the same journey. So it's different experience. Hanji, definitely 100%. So, you know, we're talking about, some of them are going to be common. So, you know, we are all walking towards that journey. Ideally, most people will want to get to the stage of hearing Shabad, but we, like I said, we will hear Shabad in different ways. Some people will experience Amrit Ras, so that taste of Amrit within their mouth, which is not coming externally, but some people won't. Some people will experience sun as that first stage, second stage of sun, where it's all dark, and some people will go straight to Prakash. They will see white as soon as, you know, like that first question that we had, where someone's doing that Simran and they'll see a flash of light. So it doesn't mean that we're all going to take the same exact steps. those are some of the signals, some of the signs that we are making progress, but we might experience some of them, but not others. But ultimately, that guidance from Gurbani is there to tell us roughly, you're going in the right direction. So focus on the sound, focus on the shabad internally, go into that state of sun, and then ultimately, that burgash and doing that ardas, that binti as well. So, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Harpreet Singh, you're on mute at the moment. So, Harpreet Singh is Dr. Harpreet Singh, also Darshan Penji's husband, and has been doing Simran for a very, very long time. How many years, Viji?
20 years.
20 years. Amazing. So, Maharaj Kirpana Viji can give us also share a lot of his experiences and his wisdom as well. So, if there are more questions, please do post them up. In the meantime, Vijay, I'm just going to put you on the spot and ask you to share a little bit of your journey if you can.
Yeah, sure. So I was, for those of you who don't know me, I come from a normal Punjabi family, as many of us do. So I'm like, you have born again Christians, I'm probably a born again Sikh. And then I went to, so my uncles, my family members live a very different way of life. And growing up, you see so much dukkh in that way of life, so much suffering, so much conflict. And I didn't really have that kind of successful relationship role model to look up to. My father passed away when I was very young. So there was no like clear path of what a male should be like, what a good male should be like, what a good husband should be like, what a good father should be like. So without that, I kind of went to university, did the normal things, was dating, was going to clubbing nights and getting into fights and getting arrested and things like that, all without my mum knowing about it. So hopefully she's not on this call. And then I kind of felt a little bit empty. So I'd go to sleep at night, and you just feel like even though you have money, you have a car, you have relationship, you have a relationship, but it still felt like there was something missing. And I was Thai boxing at the time, competing in Thai boxing, and I just from the outside I looked like I had it all together. I was Mr. Popular, but on the inside I just felt empty, like something was missing. And I had this thought one day about, most of my friends at the time were girls, and I thought, well, if I had an accident, for example, I'd lost a leg, I don't think half of these people would want anything to do with me or talk to me anymore. So I thought, do I really want to invest all of my time and life in relationships which are completely superficial? And so then after that, I just randomly one day just put on a Simran track when I was at university. Just started listening to Simran, started to get peace from it. So I think from somewhere I must have had some. In Gurbani it says Purab Janam Pargateo Jab Ankar Peteo Purkharas Bairagi. So I remember as a probably 12-year-old going to Hajur Sahib, and I saw Panch Pyare coming out with the Blackies, going into a room with the Blackies, and I said to my mom, "What's happening there?" And she goes, "Oh, it's Amrit." I was like, "I want to take Amrit," and she was like, "You have no idea what you're talking about, and maybe go home first and try and learn some part, and then if you still want to do it in the future, then you can do it." So I think there was something there from past lives, and then Gurbani says that as well. Gurbani says, "Purab Janam Purchun Kamai Har Har Naam Pyari Jio," that you've collected little amounts of Naam wealth the previous lives, and then you've been given this birth in a Sikh household where you can have a chance to continue where you left off. So then that was university times, and then I went to Boss Camp, which I'm not sure if it still exists, but there used to be a Sikhi camp, and then I was like probably Asa Divar one morning when they had their translations, and I had no idea what Gurbani meant. My mum used to get me to read Banj Boriya sometimes, and I think they used to make us do it in Punjabi class. But apart from that, that was like the only exposure to Sikhi I had. I never knew what any of it meant, and then I saw Asadi and I thought, if this was a book, this would be like the best-selling book in the world. This is just mind-blowing. It's just all one-liners, and they just hit you. And so then, and my friend, my best mate from uni, Sukhbir Singh, who's actually in the Panch Pyare for Tuksal, he was there. We were very similar, and we were very close. And he just overnight changed. And for me, it took probably about, I'd say, at least a year, probably 2 years. We started to do Nityanam, started to go to Sangat, go to programs. They used to call it TGI Fridays at Satnam Singh's house in Hayes. Kirtan, little house Kirtan program on Friday nights. Wednesdays, Sikh missionary in South or Eastern Simran program. So I would basically go anywhere where I could get some sangat, and that really helped in terms of transitioning and giving me the courage to think, oh yeah, I want to grow my hair now, and I want to like cut off some of the naturally when I grew my hair, it cut off some of the old ties that I had, and that kind of that kept me out of a lot of stuff as well, in terms of going to like potentially clubs where fights would happen. And since I've become a singer, that fortunately it saved me from a lot of stuff. And then I started doing sangat with lots of different groups of people, AKJ, Daksalis. I used to go to Nanak Sir, like PMKC guys in Swindon, anywhere basically, anywhere where there was a program, youth programs. And then I heard about Paiseva Singh in India. So when I graduated from university, I wanted to go and stay in India for a year, which was the plan. But just before I was going to go, I met Darshan Kaur, and she said, "You can't go for a year. You can go for a month." So I went and stayed there, and that was probably my first exposure to real Sikhi, because I'd be walking down the corridor, and you could see they had mesh doors, and you could see people doing Simran, and everyone was in sun, what Benji was talking about before, and you just think all of these things that Gurbani talks about, Har Pehli Lam Parvirti Karan Daraya, Balaram Ji, Sajanand Vadbagi Man Har Har Meetha Laya, like all of these things that Gurbani is talking about, we read about in Kirtan Sahla every day. We read about Saj, we read about Sun. I was like, these guys are actually experiencing it. And I felt like even if I thought I'm never worthy enough because of my past, the things I've done in my life to experience that stuff. But if I can just do the seva of these people, like how much of a blessing is that? And I used to listen to Baba Isha Singh's Gatha as well. It just anywhere I could get Sangat, and there's a lot of old recordings of him. And he used to say, one day spent in Sadhu Sangat is equivalent to 6 months bhakti. So that really kept me going, because obviously staying in India is a little bit hard with snakes and frogs and heat and things like that. But yeah, it was life changing. That's where I started to have experiences, and that's where the journey, like the internal journey, really started for me then.
So, Vijay,
Yeah, sorry.
could you just say what some of those, first of all, what some of those internal changes were? What were
Yeah.
they? What were you like before, and what happened after? And then, if you're comfortable, just sharing a couple of experience either that you had or Sangat around you had.
Yeah, so there was a family I read by Rama Singh's book, and he said that he met this family and they used to Amritullah every morning, and I just did ardas to Maharaj that, just give me a family like that I can just do sangat with, because my family wasn't into Sikhi. And then Maharaj God Vaheguru answered my prayers, and he introduced me to that family. So every evening I would go to their house, and just their father's really had a lot of drirta. He's been doing Simran for a long period of time. They were all going into Sun. They were all having experiences. So being around them, it just felt amazing, like actually seeing practical Sikhi, like this is the real thing. This isn't just talking. And so that had an impact on me, because I thought, you know, that this stuff is possible. It's not just a story. And then that motivated me, because I could see they're just normal people like everybody else, but just Simran has got them to these states. So then at university, I completely changed. They must have thought I was radicalized or something, because I came back one summer and I had a dastar, and the receptionist said to me, "Did you hit your head?" And I was like, "No," which is a really awkward moment for her. But I would just have headphones in and have Simran on all the time, like day and night. So yeah, I just went all in, and I would sit for hours at one period of time, and my back would hurt from lack of exercise and just sitting too much. But I thought, all you have to do is do Simran, so I'm just going to try and do, like, you know, Gurbani says, try and do Simran all the time. So there was no balance. It was just morning, go Ahmadullah, then go university if you have to, but just do Simran through the day with headphones. Still having vichar, still not really, truly walking the path from the outside, probably seemed like it. But, you know, there were noticeable changes in my behavior. Like before, I was like, you know, in high school, I had girlfriends, and college, and first year university. But then my profession is osteopathy, so you crack people's backs and things like that. And the girls wanted to always partner with me, because they felt safe. They knew I wasn't gonna like be dodgy and things like that. And the environment, just the way it was at the university, there's and that course, there's just a lot of practical elements. There's a lot of like practicing on each other, that type of thing. You're undressed for lots of parts of it. And some of the comments the guys would make just in passing, a lot of the bibi, I felt a lot of the women felt uncomfortable partnering with some of those guys. So it was, you know, other people kind of gravitated towards that, and that kind of focus, and just the fact that I wasn't getting involved in those conversations and that banter, and I just put my headphones in. So from an outside perspective, people probably thought, yeah, he's really religious. I'm just as flawed as anybody else, but I was trying. So even just that trying thing, I think from an outside perspective, people thought, yeah, this guy's really changed. My family used to go to a lot of parties, and used to make us dance a lot when we were kids, and we had all these like routines memorized, and I was a good Bhangra dancer, and I just lost all interest in anything else. Like I stopped watching TV, which is a bit extreme. I watch TV now, by the way. But I stopped watching TV. I just thought, this is messing with my head. I don't want like additional vichar. I stopped going to any like parties, because I would just sit there and I'd feel so uncomfortable, because I could just see everyone smashed, and I was like the only sober guy, and it just felt like just like not the right environment for me. It wasn't anything anyone said to me, "Oh, you can't do this," or "You can't go here." So like my way of life changed quite a bit, and then
I think it's also important to say, I was talking today to some Sangat, is, you know, that's often a stage where you come away from a lot of things. And sometimes at the beginning, it can be from that place of judgment, like, oh, that's not good and I'm better. But what I found recently is it kind of comes full circle in a strange way. Like all the stuff, you know, I stopped watching TV, I was focused on the Simran, I became more serious. But then when I started doing the actual proper Simran, what I found is there's so much said now. You know, me and the kids went to the cinema the other week. You know, we went to an engagement the other week. And what you find is when you become really drir, when you become really stable in your practice, you then are able to still be in the world, but not be affected by it. So it's not about, oh, you're going to go down this path, it's all going to be serious and blah, blah, blah. There is a stage where you have to stop doing some of that stuff because it affects you mentally. You take on too many vichar. But as your practice deepens, what you'll find is you can be in the company of whoever, but you will no longer be affected by them. And you experience so much peace and joy that you're actually having a better quality of life now. You're truly enjoying life without all the conflict and the judgment that comes with it. So I think that's really important to say that, because for a lot of people, including me, that was a barrier in my journey into Sikhi and into Simran, was thinking, oh, people are going to judge me and say, oh, I'll become more this serious person, or, well, what's the point of life then if I'm just going to become serious and not going to do anything? So I just feel like that's a stage that you go through. But ultimately, when you start actually doing the Simran, you start to experience life in an even better way. You start to enjoy even more, and you don't necessarily need those external things to make you happy anymore. You're not seeking pleasure from the alcohol or the clubbing or the attention from the opposite sex, because you're feeling that peace, you're feeling that acceptance on the inside already. So Vijay, I'm just conscious of time because it's 7 o'clock, but it would be really great if you could just share either
no
your highest experience or something that really, really kind of motivated you or made you think, wow, this is the path I want to go on.
So I'd like to share two things. I'll probably share, one is like, I think sometimes what I've noticed from being in Sangat a long time is, I think Benji is talking about this before I came on, was about like people get caught up in experiences, like this guy's experiencing this and this guy's experiencing that and I'm not, and to the degree where it can really send you down like a negative direction. And if God has one weakness, that weakness is love. So when you experience love towards somebody, whether it's a person like me and Dashkor, or God, which is a much different experience of love, there's so much bliss in it. Like without any experience, just to feel longing and just to feel loved and to feel that love towards Paramatma, like that, if that was all one it was to experience, that's enough. Darshak was singing the other week that bin sangati pau na upaje, bin pau bhagat na hoi, right? That without love, without sangat, you can't get love of Paramatma. Without true sachi sangat, what Gurbani says is sat sangat, and without that love, you can't do bhakti. So that like that experience of love, like where you can't even say God's name without crying, because you feel so much like longing to see God, to hear God. Like that is a very blissful state. When you hear a Shabad and you just can't stop crying. And I that's a blessing for anybody who experiences that love in their life. And Paramatma is or loves us. Aape karta karka dekhe dinda saas kar hai, like just like a child gives, a child is fed by its mother, that gives it each morsel. He's giving us each breath. So regardless of how flawed we might be, Paramatma loves us. So that is an experience which is intangible and indescribable. But just the first time where I thought this stuff is really real and it's possible for me to experience this stuff as well was in Mogga. They used to do work during the day, but because I was a foreigner and soft, they said you don't have to do work. So I was sitting in the room doing Simran, and I was doing a jukti called Jarakar, which I'm sure Benji will cover. And I went into Sun, and usually I just didn't know whether I was asleep or in Sun. But this time I came out of Sun and I could see my body, but I couldn't move. So it was like complete paralysis. And initially it was a bit unnerving because I could see my body there, but I had no control of my limbs, of my face, of anything. And I could hear Shabad, so I could hear sounds. And that's when I was like, wow, the mind and the body are two separate things. And this stuff that Gurbani talks about, Jivat Mare, like die while you're living, Mare from Jive, ऐसे सुन समाई पहला मरण कबूल कर जीवन की षड्यास हो सब सबना की रैन का फिर आओ हमारे पास. That like dying while living, that's when I first had a glimpse of what dying was. And it's not physical death, it's death of when you kill your thoughts, like what kind of things are possible. And that really was really within a short period of time. It felt like a long period of time, but within a short period of time I started to be able to move my body again. But it was an incredible experience because everything else in life has always been very linked to the body, right? You do everything for the body. You have a hot shower, you have a hot bath because it feels nice, you get a massage. And this was actually, I'm not my body. And that was a very special experience, and probably my first one where I thought, no, this wasn't just imagined, this was so in Vichar Karde Hain. Sorry if I've said anything wrong, and sorry I haven't actually answered any questions that's waffled on. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, I don't think my patient's here yet.
Anji, that's amazing, Vijay. You haven't waffled on. It's been really, I think on my journey, what was really important was, again, having that sad sangat that's hearing people's experiences, also hearing where they've struggled and the amazing experiences that they've had. So I think what you've just said is going to be really helpful for everyone. If you do have any questions generally about anything that we've spoken about so far, again, please feel free to use the WhatsApp group in that context as well. You can ask questions on there. But we're going to finish for today. And Maharaji Kirpana, we will see you next week for the session 3 of the course. So thank you, everybody. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Waheguru. Wah.